Chinese men and women are being held in detention camps where authorities say they are re-educating minorities. Scary words. Sewing clothes that have been reported to U.S. sportswear companies. RT's Sara Montes de Oca joins me. Okay, Sara, this is a very scary idea, and the fact that it's just now starting to come to the spotlight and starting to get headlines, what can you tell us about these camps?
Well, Scottie, the Chinese government also said that these camps are to promote ethnic unity, but as the U.S. and the UN stated, forced labor is a type of modern slavery. Now, in Xinjiang, a region bordering Pakistan and Afghanistan, stand internment camps, the forced labor that the UN calls a form of modern slavery. Behind these internment camps, men and women are sewing sportswear that can end up on U.S. college campuses and sports teams. Now, according to the Associated Press, ongoing shipments from at least one factory inside an internment camp are sent to Badger Sportswear. This is a leading supplier of sportswear in Statesville, North Carolina. Now, China promotes them as learning centers and say that it's part of a plan to bring minorities into a modern, civilized world. These centers are made up of mostly Uyghurs, Kazakhs, and others who are mostly Muslims. Now, they're forced to give up their religion and their culture. In recent decades, violent attacks by Uyghur militants have killed hundreds of people. This prompted the Chinese government to tighten up security against minority groups. China described the camp as a vocational training center to help minorities steer clear of religious extremism. Up to 1 million Muslims are reportedly detained. Some of the detainees don't get paid, while others earned up to several hundreds a month, barely above minimum wage for the poor parts of Xinjiang. Now, on Wednesday, a member of China's Uyghur minority who had been detained several times told members of Congress of her torture and abuse.
Before we ate breakfast, which was water with very little rice, we had to sing songs hailing the Communist Party. We had to repeat in Chinese, in quote, "Long live Xi Jinping," and in quote, "Lenience for those who repent and a punishment for those who resist." Anyone who could not memorize a book of slogans and rules within 14 days would be denied food or beaten. My people look to the United States as a beacon of hope. It is the only country that can tell China to stop its ethnic cleansing of the Uyghur people.
Chinese spokeswoman from the foreign ministry had a message to send to foreign media.
Now, the foreign media has made many untrue reports on the vocational training center in Xinjiang. We hope media can report the situation in an objective and comprehensive manner and make sure that they are not making unwarranted accusations against China based on some hearsay evidence and speculation.
But family and friends of several detainees told the AP that many of those held in the camps are being forced to work in these factories, some allowed to visit family only a few hours per week. Many of them hold college degrees and some even professions before they were detained. Now, Scottie, these types of imports right now have been stopped, but the CEO of Badger Sportswear is looking to get imports from elsewhere for now while the U.S. investigates this report.
Sara, this is very concerning, especially considering this is 2018 and we're seeing these images. And I have to think of the barbed wire. You know, this does not look like a by choice camp if you have to hold by barbed wire. Have we heard anything from the United States included about these camps and the freedoms that are being denied within these talks that we're having with trade right now?
Just pretty much that they are being investigated by the U.S. This is something that has come out recently, and the AP broke the report for it when they went and visited. They did interviews with families who told their stories. So,
well, this is just the beginning.
Ongoing.
Let's hope there's some more light shed to this. Like I said, this is 2019. It's very scary to see that these things are still happening in the world we live in today. Thank you, Sara. We turn now to a guest who has worked to uncover stories like these for many years. Anti-sweatshop campaigner and journalist Jeff Ballinger. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure to be with you.
Well, I wish it was on a different subject because, like I just asked with Sara, it's 2018 going to 2019, and we're seeing these images right here. I mean, we know of sweatshops that they've existed. We've known of celebrities being tied to these sweatshops. But now you were one of the first to report on Nike's use of sweatshops, I remember in the 1990s. So what is different, or possibly what's the same about the latest exposure of these violations and abuse of workers in these areas?
Well, there's not much different except that there aren't as many watchdog groups active as there were when we really had some momentum built up in the late 90s. And unfortunately, Bill Clinton stepped in and kind of gave the CEO scoundrels of these electronics companies and toy companies and apparel companies a get-out-of-jail-free card. I mean, it was very distressing for, you know, a lifelong Democrat like me to see our party kind of bailing out some of the worst, most rapacious corporations that, let me be clear, they don't run these factories. They always used Korean or Taiwanese companies, sometimes local Chinese or local Indonesian companies. I'm most familiar with Indonesia. But they try to keep an arm's-length relationship. And so when it became clear that they really couldn't stop the abuses or the wage cheating or anything, they employed this corporate social responsibility smokescreen that Bill Clinton helped them develop.
Well, that is very scary because since the Nike expose, extensive anti-sweatshop activism, corporates adopted this corporate social responsibility code of conduct. So we thought we had taken care of this. First of all, can you explain what this code of conduct is? And more importantly, you know, why can companies today get away with this? They can say, yes, we're keeping you at an arm's length distance. At the same time, you have to have knowledge of why you're getting your material so cheap. Therefore, you're responsible for it.
Well, they're sort of victims. That's a poor choice of words, perhaps, but they are benefiting immensely from putting different supplier factories in competition with one another, and so they get the lowest rock bottom price. And then after they've beaten these companies into submission, it's hard for them to go back and say, oh, please give them Sunday afternoons off, or can't you raise the wages a little bit, because they really employed this tactic to their great benefit. And these companies have been hugely profitable. And that's going over 30 years. I mean, it didn't start with the Clinton years. A lot of these corporations moved as soon as those container ships were sailing. They saw the opportunity to go to the cheapest and most repressive countries on the planet. And really, things haven't changed that much because our movement was derailed. And I really think we had some traction in the late 90s. Americans were appalled at the stories they were hearing. But as I said earlier, this corporate social responsibility ruse kind of papered over the problems, and it looked like these corporations had an epiphany, that they realized that consumers cared about these things, but in all instances that I'm aware of, then nothing changed from a corporate social responsibility program. But there were good companies. There were companies like Sara who were producing in northern Spain and northern Portugal and paying, you know, you can't pay less than 800 euros a month to those workers. They're a very successful sportswear company, the biggest apparel company in the world, and they did it paying living wages. And it was only when, you know, they ran out of workers in northern Spain and northern Portugal did they look to Asia for their production. So I think that's just an indication that you can pay living wages, you can treat people with dignity and respect, right, and you don't have to go looking for the worst and most repressive places on earth.
Absolutely. Jeff, I love a good bargain like anybody else, but I have to ask you, I know our viewers are wondering right now, as they do head out for the retail to shop for gifts this holiday season, is there a way that they can check and make sure that the products they're buying is not a product that is made at the very beginning from one of these sweatshops in Asia or anywhere else in the world?
Well, yeah, in America we still have the country of origin labels in our clothing, and I bought suits made about 10 miles from where I'm living in Andover, Massachusetts. And I know that there are New Balance shoes being made even closer, 5 miles from where I live. He doesn't do a lot of production in the U.S. That is Jim Davis, the CEO of Nike, or of New Balance. But the key thing is he's a closely held corporation. He can do what he wants to do. He doesn't have any shareholders that would be, you know, pestering him saying, why aren't you getting the absolute lowest cost labor? Well,
I will tell you this. It's worth taking the extra time to find out where these products are coming from. Might be a little bit more of a hassle, but in the end, I promise you it's making a difference, because the best way to talk is with the dollar. Thank you for joining us.
Hey YouTube, thanks for checking out our channel. We hope you enjoyed the video. We have tons of content for you just like this. For more of RT America's one-of-a-kind news and analysis, be sure to subscribe and never stop questioning more.